I can't handle failure. I'm someone who can't handle being unsuccessful. Whether it's because of circumstances that I can or cannot control, not being successful has never been an option for me. I'm not just talking about academics, though, also about life. I'm in Pony Club. Yes, there really is such a thing. It's kind of like 4-H, but more about horse theory. Way more. Anyways, we have this thing every year called testing, which is where you're orally tested on your theory knowledge and then physically tested on your riding abilities. It was at my testing this year that I came face to face with possible failure. The day started off great, with everything running just as it should, according to my perfectly calculated schedule. However, when my horse refused to load, taking up the full 2-hour grace period I'd left behind for unexpected events, just like this, I was put into panic mode. All I could see in my mind was the first rule of testing, which is never be late. It's the best way to get on the examiner's bad side. So we drove to the testing facility as fast as we could, with me sweating in the back of the truck, putting on all of my gear. It wasn't very pretty. We finally arrived at the facility with no time to spare. The examiner noticed how we were last to arrive and made a point of telling me in a not so pleasant way that she was disappointed I was not there early, as that's the expected Pony Club way. So now I feel like someone just dropped a 50-pound weight on my heart. The fear that I had disappointed someone has ruined my day, and has set the tone for what I can only imagine will be a horrible outcome for my test. The entire day was a mishmash of errors. I ticked off the examiner, our horse trailer was parked in the wrong spot, my wonderful horse Dalgo stepped on my foot and broke my baby toe. I was given the wrong start time for my dressage test, and the list just goes on and on. Knowing I needed a clear mind for my testing, though, I forced myself to forget about the events of the day so far and concentrate on what I needed to accomplish. The results at the end of the day? Actually, I got an 85%, which is very respectable, but of course I was hoping for a 95. So, does this mean I was not successful? Well, to me it does, but in reality, it does not. Really, when everyone else would look at the day, they'd see it as a huge success. So I guess what I'm really saying is, how do you decide what is a success and what is a failure? A successful person is someone who is able to put forth their best effort, regardless of circumstances, and be proud of what they've been able to accomplish. A person who has failed is someone who knows they could have tried harder, but did not. So it's not necessarily the grade you get, or who you beat, or whether you've met your own standards or not, but rather the fact that you did your best. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have standards. You really should. It's just that you're not always going to be able to meet your own expectations, and you need to learn to be okay with that. Your best isn't going to be at the same level as the day before or the day after. For instance, if you go into an exam with a headache, your best efforts on an essay that day probably aren't going to be at the same level as if you went into it feeling completely fine. You're always going to be faced with what you may feel to be a failure, but you have to decide if that failure was beyond your control, or did you not try? As said by Vince Lombardi, the difference between a successful person and others is not the lack of strength and not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will. If you determine your success or failure simply by whether you've met your own standards or not, you're only working against yourself. A team that has lost the playoffs may still be successful if they have tried their hardest and shown improvement. They may view themselves as a failure for not getting as many goals as the other teams, but overall, they've played some of their best games. Successful people are people who set goals for themselves. It may be a future career or an athletic endeavor, but either way, they have a plan. Now, that's not to say that that plan won't come with some ups and downs. But again, the same rule applies. If you try your hardest, you'll most likely succeed. It just may not be in the exact way you had anticipated. Every day in every situation you'll ever face will have its own measure of success. It's up to you to accept those successes for what they are worth and not what you feel they should have been. Why is this even important, though? Why does it matter? Because I don't know about you, but I'm tired of beating myself up for failing. I think that society and I personally need to learn to do our best, whatever that is, today, tomorrow, yesterday, and be proud of what we've been able to accomplish. In the words of Miguel Angel Ruiz, always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It'll be different when you're healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstances, simply do your best, and you'll avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. Thank you.